Sahana vavatu sahanau bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Okay, so let's just recap first what we have done and then we will go forward. Okay, so that way we're all on the same page. So let me pull that up for us. All right. So last time we saw the tournament. We saw the tournament of Karna and Arjuna. Let me just go back maybe one. And what happens here is that Karna comes to the tournament and then he's questioned. Who are you? And how come you're here? And of what birth are you? And who are you to challenge Arjuna? And so he looks down and Duryodhana springs up and he crowns him the king of Anga because he sees that someone is better than Arjuna. And so he just jumps at that. And Karna is so touched, so touched. And Duryodhana says, just, I want your friendship. And that's the moment we said that Karna sold his soul to Duryodhana. But what happens after is Atiradha, Karna's father walks in. And so they all see that he is in fact a Sutaputra, the son of the charioteer. And so, you know, by that time, night falls and they all leave that tournament. After that tournament, we saw that Drona asked for his Guru Dakshina. And his Guru Dakshina was to capture Drupada. And so they captured Drupada, and Drona says to Drupada, I will give you half your kingdom. Now we're even, because once they captured Drupada, Drona gained everything. So Drona says, I give you half your kingdom. And Drona was fine, he was okay, but Drupada was burning inside. And we see here that Drupada had two children. Shikandi was Amba and Satyajit. But what happens is he does a yajna to gain a son who's going to defeat Drona and a daughter who's going to marry Arjuna, because he was so surprised by how skillful Arjuna was when he captured Drupada. Then we saw that Yudhishthira was crowned Yuvaraja. And Duryodhana was very, very jealous. So they decided to get rid of all of the Pandavas. And so they invited the Pandavas to this Varanavata, this palace of wax. And luckily, the Pandavas were able to escape. But they didn't go home right there and then. What happened was, on the way, Bhima met and defeated an evil Rakshasa named Hidimba. And the king's, Rakshasa sister Hidimbi fell in love with Bhima. And so they had this son, Ghatotkacha. And so we also saw that Bhima defeated Bakasura. So we also saw that episode. Then they went to Panchala. And in Panchala was Draupadi's Swayamvara. So here you see this family line. Kokila Devi and Drupada together, they gave, they had two children, Shikhandi and Satyajit. And then born of Yajna, Drupada has Draupadi and Drishtadyumna. And they just came out of the Yajna fire young and ready to fight. And so they weren't born as babies or anything. They were born from fire. They were born from this Yajna spirit. And so what was very interesting that I didn't mention last time is Drona actually taught Drishtadyumna archery. He knew Drishtadyumna was born to kill him, but Drona still taught him archery, which is pretty cool. And Draupadi, as you know, Draupadi is the destruction of the Kshatriya race. Drishtadyumna is the destruction of Drona. Shikhandi is the destruction of Bhishma. So this is Drupada's family. Destruction of everybody. Now, Pandavas went to this Swayamvara, and of course Arjuna was able to bring down the target, and therefore they married Draupadi. All 5 of them married Draupadi. And we stopped here. Yes? So I hope everyone's memories refreshed. Okay. Now, what happens after this? So first we see that Draupadi married all of the 5 Pandavas. And this happened in Drupada's palace. And he consented to it because there was a story that I told you that she asked for a husband of all wonderful, wonderful qualities. And Lord Shiva said, I will give you 5 husbands because you asked 5 times. So in your next birth, you will be married to 5 husbands. So there now, Draupadi is married to all of them. Now, this also has a beautiful symbolism, which says that Draupadi here represents the intellect. And that intellect is now married to the Jiva and the 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So this is the symbolic meaning of this alliance with Draupadi. And just as, Draupadi becomes one of the main causes of war, right? What happens is we also have this war within us, and this war is called sadhana, or our spiritual practice. And in this war, we have to destroy all of our negative impressions in the mind. With the help of Sri Krishna, we are able to destroy it. And that's the role of Draupadi. Draupadi is actually a beautiful sadhaka who, with the help of Sri Krishna, is trying to destroy all of these negative things which keep us from performing our sadhana. So the Pandavas are happy now, and everyone's very cool, very happy. What happens is the news reaches the Kaurava court, and Duryodhana is upset, and Karna is upset, and they're looking for means and ways to destroy these Pandavas. They said, maybe, create hatred between the brothers. Maybe turn Draupadi against them. Maybe do something else, but let's just get rid of these Pandavas. Why do they keep coming back? We want to try and get rid of them, but they keep coming back. So meanwhile, Bhishma, Drona, and Vidura, they advise Dhritarashtra and they say, Dhritarashtra, listen, your name is tarnished. Because of that palace of wax, everyone's blaming you for that fire. Now's your chance to do good. Now's your chance to save face. So call them back. Call them back here because now they're married. And they deserve half of the kingdom. It rightfully belongs to them. So please call them back and make this ally. And besides, now the Pandavas are unstoppable. They're unstoppable because they have allied with Drupada. And Drupada's army is magnificent. And not only that, they have allied with Sri Krishna. So you call them back. So Vidura goes and he goes to see the Pandavas in Draupada's palace, and he is so ecstatic and so happy to see them, and so he says, if we would like to call them back to Hastinapur. King Dhritarashtra would like to invite them back to live. And so they all ask Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna was there, and Lord Krishna says, yes, okay, you can go. So now the Pandavas make their way back to Hastinapur. And they were welcomed by Dhritarashtra, by Bhishma, by Drona. They were welcomed in the really grand way by everyone. And now Dhritarashtra tells them, now, this is what will happen. I will give you half the kingdom. I will give you the kingdom of Khandava Prastha. And this Khandava Prastha will be your kingdom, and we will stay here in Hastinapura. So now the Pandavas went to this Khandava Prastha. And this Khandava Prastha was a barren land. There was barely anything there. It was just raw and barren. But luckily, Lord Krishna said, let us get Vishwakarma, the divine architect. And they built up that land, and that land from Khandava Prastha became Indraprastha. And that Indraprastha today is Delhi. So when you go to Delhi, you can actually go to where the Pandavas lived. How exciting! And that Hastinapur is in Uttar Pradesh. So they were very, very happy in this Indraprastha. Now, as they were settling down, when people get newly married, there's always so many people giving advice. You must do this in your marriage. You must do that in your marriage, and all of these things. So Naraji also came. Naraji came to Yudhishthira and said, listen, you all must be very careful with your marriage because you are married to one wife. So, and he tells them this story from, way back. I'm not going to tell you the story, but I'll tell you the gist. He says, now this is what you must do. Draupadi must be with only one brother in 1 year. So, and when she is alone with that brother, nobody must enter. Nobody must disturb them. Nobody must come to them. And let her be with that brother. Maybe the eldest one will be first and then follow through with it. And if anybody comes in between, they will have to go to the forest for 12 years. They will have to go exile for 12 years. You have to keep this arrangement between you brothers, because the story that was told was there were two brothers who were very dear to each other, but they loved the same girl. And so there was, animosity built between them. So Naraji says, you must not let this happen between all of you brothers. You must keep everything very clean and decent. So Yudhishthira said, yes, we will follow. Now, one day, so first Draupadi was with Yudhishthira, was staying with Yudhishthira. Now one day, this Brahmana comes and approaches Arjuna. His cows were stolen. And for a Brahmana, they need their cows. And he goes to Arjuna and he says, Arjuna, you please help me. The cows are stolen. And Arjuna says, I can't help you now because my weapons are in Yudhishthira's house. So and I'm not supposed to enter that house right now because Yudhishthira and Draupadi are there. So I cannot go. So the Brahmana says, then what are you Kshatriyas there for? You are supposed to protect us. You are supposed to help us. And Arjuna is in two minds, because if he enters that place, he's gone. He goes for 12 years. And by studying Mahabharata, that these people are people of their word. Once they say something, they will do it. They will actually follow through. So Arjuna goes to Yudhishthira's room and he gets the weapon. And Yudhishthira understands, but Arjuna he gets the weapon, he saves the Brahmana, he gets all the cows, whatever that were stolen, he brings it back to the Brahmana, and he goes to Yudhishthira and he apologizes and he said, I'm very sorry. And Yudhishthira said, I understand what you did. Both Yudhishthira and Draupadi understood. And Arjuna said, yes, but the vow was, we have to leave for 12 years. And Yudhishthira said, you need not leave. We understand what you did. He said, no, I'm going to go. And Arjuna leaves them for 12 years. My goodness. So Arjuna leaves them and he goes on a Tirtha Yatra. So he goes here because he understands that this is what I have to do. And he goes to all of these different places of pilgrimage. It is in this Tirtha Yatra, in the last year, so Arjuna has, he meets other people also. In the last year, he goes to Dwaraka. And in this Dwaraka, he meets Lord Krishna. And everybody is so happy to welcome him. Now, something happens to Arjuna in Dwaraka. He sees Subhadra. And that was it. He said, I want to be with Subhadra and I want to marry her. And Lord Sri Krishna said, okay, this alliance is okay. Probably because he knew what was going to happen and he knew who would be born from that alliance. So what happens is Arjuna and Subhadra elope. They elope and they leave Dwaraka with Lord Krishna's permission, and Balarama is furious. But anyway, Lord Krishna explains to him why they did that, and so they are married in Dwaraka, and then they come back finally to Indraprastha. So now they all come back to Indraprastha, and Draupadi and Subhadra meet. And so now everybody is together. Now everybody is prospering there in Indraprastha. And Draupadi gave birth, because 5 sons eventually. First, she gave birth to Yudhishthira's son, which is Prativindya. Then she gave birth to Sutasoma from Bhima. Then Shatanika from Nakula. And then Shrutasena from Sahadeva, because they were there. Then after Arjuna comes back, later on, she gives birth to Shrutakarma. And Arjuna and Subhadra together, they give birth to Abhimanyu. So this Indraprastha is just doing so extremely well. The way, because they have the blessings of Lord Krishna. Now they have the 5 sons, which are known as Upapandavas. Plus they have Abhimanyu. Plus, Arjuna also has other sons, Iravan and one more other son. And who are not with them in Indraprastha, but he also has them. And everybody is prospering. And one day, Lord Krishna was with them. And they go to this forest, the Kandava forest. And in there, this Agni, this person disguised as Agni, says, please help me. I want you to I need some food. And they say, what food do you need? And he reveals himself to be Agni. He says, I need to burn down this entire forest. I have to burn down this entire forest because this Dakshaka is there. Will you help me? And so Arjuna said, okay, but what happened? And this Agni said, every time I try to burn down this forest, this Indra keeps the rains going. So I'm not able to burn it down. So Arjuna said, listen, if you want us to fight with Indra, you need to provide us with divine weapons. So it is here that Arjuna is given his Gandiva, his bow, and his quivers with endless arrows, and his horses, and his flag with the monkey insignia. And it is here that Lord Krishna is given back his Sudarshana Chakra. And together they burned down this Khandava forest. And as they were burning it down, there was one person left. And this person's name was Maya. And this Maya said, please, please save me. Don't burn me down in this forest. And they said, okay, we will save you. So now Arjuna has all of these things with him. Lord Krishna has his chakra with him. And Maya goes with them. Now this burning of the Khandava forest is also quite beautiful, the meaning. It's about, when you look at the deeper symbolism of it, it is a seeker who's burning all their negative vasanas. They are trying to burn all the negative vasanas that keep growing and keep growing. But every time the seeker tries to do it on their own, the rains of desire come, which is Indra's rays. The rains of desire come and tell them, oh, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. The rains of desire keep coming, and therefore they're not able to succeed. But when that seeker has the grace of Arjuna and Sri Krishna, of that Jiva and of that Ishvara, when both are cooperative, then that seeker is able to burn down all of those negative vasanas. So now, this Indraprastha is just booming. It's just beautiful. But now, it becomes even more beautiful. So with all of these events, we complete Adi Parva. We are now going to enter into Sabha Parva. Sabha means the hall. This Maya comes to them. And this Maya says, I can build you a great Sabha, a great hall, a beautiful one with illusions and different structures and the most precious gems and everything. So Yudhishthira says, okay, whatever Lord Krishna says. And Lord Krishna says, okay, you build it. So this Maya built this wonderful, wonderful Sabha. And now Indraprastha is just so rich, so many resources. Plus it has this beautiful Sabha that's never been seen before. Then Narada Rishi comes. And Narada Rishi comes and says, Yudhishthira, I have something to tell you. Your father and your grandfather, your father Pandu and Shantanu, they are longing to go to Indraloka, but they're not able to go because the son has to perform this yajna called Rajasuya, this sacrificial thing that you have to perform called Rajasuya. So Yudhishthira says, okay, so should I perform that? And Naraji says, yes, you should perform that. And that will also make you the emperor of the whole land. It will make you that, emperor that nobody can come against. And for this, you'll have to seek allies. You'll have to go through all the different parts of the land. And so, of course, Yudhishthira always seeks guidance from Bhagavan Krishna. So Yudhishthira says, Bhagavan Krishna, this is what Narada said. And Bhagavan Krishna says, You can seek allies, and you can seek, you can conquer all of the land. But there will be one very, very tough enemy for you, and that will be Jarasandha. Now, this Jarasandha, Lord Krishna has tried to defeat 18 times, but this Jarasandha is undefeated. So you must go and you must conquer this Jarasandha. So Lord Krishna says, you send me with Arjuna and Bhima and we will go. And so they went to Jarasandha's kingdom, and they went and they jumped the wall and they go to Jarasandha, and Jarasandha is laughing there because he sees Lord Krishna. He says, what? Those 18 times were not enough? And Lord Krishna says, you can choose any one of us and we'll defeat you. So Jarasandha chooses Bhima. And this Jarasandha and Bhima were fighting like anything. Now, this Jarasandha has a backstory. This Jarasandha's father couldn't have a son. And so one saint gave him one fruit and said, you give this to your wife and you will have a son. Now this Jarasandha had 2 queens. So he had the fruit and he gave it to each of the queens. And what happened? Each of the queens gave birth to half a body. They gave birth to half a body. So they threw it away. They threw it away. So, but this demoness, Jara, she saw these 2 parts and she actually wanted something to eat. So she saw she was going to eat them, but she said, let me try to put it together. She put it together, they stuck. And so she gave that child back to the queens. And this Jarasandha apparently did lots and lots of tapasya. So he had that boon that, it will be very difficult to conquer him. And his name became Jarasandha because he was joined, Sandha, by this demoness Jara. So this Jarasandha was like that. So Bhima was fighting with this Jarasandha, and he kept tearing him apart. But every time he tore him apart, he would come back together. And so Lord Krishna took a piece of leaf and he caught Bhima's eye and he tore that leaf in half and he threw it in different places. So then Bhima got the hint. So he tore Jarasandha in half and he put them in 2 different places, and that Jarasandha was vanquished. Now, the inner meaning to this story is, what is this Jarasandha? This Jarasandha is nothing but our raga dvesha, our likes and dislikes, the pull of our likes and dislikes, that they were always together. And these likes and dislikes, they obstruct us from becoming that unparalleled conqueror of the self. So before we enter into that realm where we are the sovereign rule, we have to conquer these likes and dislikes, which is symbolized by Jarasandha. So now they all go back. Yudhishthira is very happy, and they have this extravagant Rajasuya Yajna. All the kings from all the places are invited, and they are all allied now to Yudhishthira. So Yudhishthira has a sovereign rule, and plus he has the Sabha, he has the wealth, he has the children, he has Draupadi, he has everything. And so now, in this Rajasuya Yajna, there has to be the guest of honor. So he asks Bhishma, who should be the guest of honor? So Bhishma says, it should only be Krishna. And this Krishna was the guest of honor, and he was worshipped first. His feet were washed, they did arati to him, and nobody said anything except for this Shishupala. This Shishupala comes, and the Shishupala keeps insulting and insulting Lord Krishna. He insults Yudhishthira. He says, Couldn't you have picked somebody else to be the guest of honor? Why are you picking this Lord Krishna? Goes on and on and on. And everybody is so upset. All the Pandavas are so upset. And Bhishma says, wait. Shishupala has a story. Shishupala was born with 3 eyes and 4 arms. And he was born to his mother. And his mother was told that somebody will be able to hold this Shishupala, and his eyes will become 2 eyes and his hands will become 2 hands. But whoever holds him and he becomes normal, that person will also be his death. And so, guess what? Shishupala and Lord Krishna are distant relatives. So Lord Krishna went to see Shishupala. And when he went to see Shishupala, he held him when he was a baby. And he had 2 eyes now and 2 arms. And so the mother said, please do not be the death of my son. And Lord Krishna said, I will forgive 100 insults of Shishupala. But after that, no more. And that's exactly what happened in this Rajasuya Yajna. That Lord Krishna was insulted 100 times by Shishupala. 100 times he was insulted. And patiently he sat there. He didn't do anything. But after that 101th time, he took his Sudarshan Chakra and he defeated this Shishupala. Now, this Yajna, which was supposed to be so holy, so auspicious, so wonderful, now it had all negative omens. Now all these negative vibrations were in the air. And Naraji said, now the destruction of the Kuru race will begin. And everyone who attended this Rajasuya Yajna will perish. Nobody will be alive in time. And so Yudhishthira is so upset by what happened. But this is what's happened. And so after this, everyone, visits the Sabha, of course, the new Sabha that was made. And Duryodhana already was burning. He and Shakuni visit this grand hall, this grand Sabha. And when they visit this Sabha, it's got like lots of tricky parts to it. So this Duryodhana, in the part where it was, it seems like it was land, it was actually water. So Duryodhana actually fell into the water and he got wet. And so Yudhishthira sent for a new set of clothes for him. In the part that looked like it was water and Duryodhana would lift up his clothes, it was actually land. And when he was going through the doors, in something that seemed like it was actually open was a crystal door, so he hit himself. So Duryodhana kept going through all of these illusions and he kept messing up, and the Pandavas and Draupadi laughed at him. They just laughed at him because he was just so, he kept messing up. And finally he leaves this Sabha. He and Shakuni leave. Now this is where all of this craziness begins. Duryodhana is just burning inside. He's absolutely burning inside because of all of these things that happened. Yudhishthira has got all the wealth. He did the Rajasuya Yajna. He's so prosperous, so many allies. He's got this Sabha with gems that Duryodhana doesn't even know. And of all of the things, Duryodhana was humiliated. He wanted to commit suicide. He just didn't know what to do. He couldn't face the Pandavas anymore. And Shakuni says, listen, Duryodhana, I am very skilled at this game of dice. I'm very skilled. Why don't you tell Dhritarashtra to invite them to a game of dice? And I will win. I will win over them. And let's do that. And this way we can defeat these Pandavas. And so Duryodhana says that's a great idea. And he tells Dhritarashtra everything that happened. This Duryodhana's lamentations, they're like maybe so many verses where he talks about how bad he feels. Now this Dhritarashtra is supposed to do everything consulting Vidura. But here he doesn't consult Vidura. He just says, okay, let's do it. Because he's so caught with this attachment with Duryodhana. So he tells Vidura, you know what? This is what we're going to do. We're going to build a Sabha and we're going to invite the Pandavas here. We'll invite the Pandavas here and then we'll invite them to a game of dice. And let's see what happens now. And so the Kauravas, they build a Sabha. They build this hall in Jayanta and they invite the Pandavas. Now Dhritarashtra tells Vidura, you go and call Yudhishthira. Now Vidura goes and tells Yudhishthira everything. He tells Yudhishthira, listen, Dhritarashtra's called you for a game of dice. This is who's playing. Shakuni will be there. All of these people will be there. And this is what will happen. And Yudhishthira said, Vidura, should I go? And, he says, you do whatever you think you should do. And Yudhishthira says, I have to go because it's my dharma to follow my elders. And if a dice game is asked for, then I have to go. But I'm going to try to avoid it at all costs. But if that Shakuni challenges me, then I won't be able to stop it. I won't say no. But I will try in the beginning. I will try to avert it at all costs. But if I am challenged, I will have to do it. So, all of them, Pandavas, Draupadi, they go to this hall. Now, when Yudhishthira goes there, of course, the first night, they treat them very well. They say, okay, you just rest. And in the morning, we'll all talk, etc. So they all rest. And the next day, they talk about this game of dice. Duryodhana starts talking about it. And Yudhishthira says, we don't need to play this game. It's gambling. So many bad things happen from gambling. If we want to really do something, we should, fight. If you want to see who's going to be victorious, fight, but not gambling and all of these other things. And so he tries to avert it, but then he's not successful. And Duryodhana says, on behalf of me, Shakuni will play with you. And Yudhishthira is challenged. He's challenged. Now he has to say yes. He says yes. Now the game of dice begins. Shakuni keeps rolling the dice, and at every single roll he keeps winning. Yudhishthira stakes his treasury. He stakes the people that are in his palace. He stakes his entire wealth. He stakes his cattle. He stakes his gems, his jewels. He stakes everything. And Vidura tells Dhritarashtra, stop this right now. This is definitely going to bring down the Kuru dynasty. He keeps advising this Dhritarashtra, but this Dhritarashtra is he's physically blind and mentally blind. He doesn't listen to Vidura. He just listens to Duryodhana. And this Dhritarashtra just keeps asking, who won? Who won? Who won? And Shakuni wins every single round. Now at this point, Yudhishthira lost control. This is his fault. He loses control. He just keeps staking everything. He loses control. Finally, there's nothing else to stake. There's nothing else to bid. So they ask him, what now? He says, Nakula. Nakula is up for stake. And Nakula is lost. Sahadeva is up. He's lost. And Shakuni tells them, oh, so you love Bhima and Arjuna more than them. Is that why you put them in stake first? Yudhishthira was furious. He says, now I put Arjuna up. Arjuna was lost. Then he says, now I put Bhima up. Bhima was lost. And everybody is just looking at what's going on. Then Yudhishthira says, I put myself. And Yudhishthira is lost. Now every single thing is completely lost. Shakuni says, you still have something else. Yudhishthira says, what? Draupadi. Oi. When he said Draupadi's name, everyone shook because they know what Draupadi is. And he says, Draupadi. And they roll the dice. Draupadi was lost. And Duryodhana says to one of his servants, bring Draupadi here. And so the servant goes to Draupadi and explains to her what happened. She says, listen, I will follow Dharma. But you please ask them, did Yudhishthira lose me after he lost himself? Or what? And if he loses me after he lost himself, then am I his? Or am I anybody's? And she puts this question to everybody. And so the servant goes back and says, this is Draupadi's question. Did Yudhishthira wager me after he lost himself? And if so, am I still a slave? And so they said, you send Draupadi back and tell her to ask her question in this assembly, in this Sabha. And so she went and tried to bring Draupadi back, but she wouldn't go. And finally, Duryodhana says, you just take her. But this servant, was very scared of Draupadi's wrath. Because Draupadi's eyes alone can burn down the entire race. I mean, that powerful her tapascharya is. So they call this Dushasan. And it is this point, which is the most painful episode ever, is that Dushasan drags this Draupadi by the hair. He drags Draupadi by her hair. And he brings her to the Sabha. And she looks at everybody in the Sabha and she says, what kind of Sabha is this? What kind of Sabha is this where the elders are quiet and they don't say anything? What kind of a Sabha is this? Dharma is not being followed at all. Am I lost or not? And everybody's quiet. Bhishma says, no, the laws of Dharma are very subtle. Vidura told them, Draupadi is not lost. She is not lost because Yudhishthira lost himself already. So she is not lost to anybody. But they wouldn't listen. Everybody's quiet. All the Pandavas are quiet because they feel that they have lost themselves to the Kauravas. They feel that they are now slaves of the Kauravas, so they have no right to speak. It is this one Kaurava, Vikarna. He speaks up and he says Draupadi is not a slave. She is not a slave because Yudhishthira lost himself and then he lost Draupadi. And they are all stunned and they are applauding Vikarna. But still this Duryodhana, Dushasan and Karna was also part of this. Karna is instigative as all of them. They tell Draupadi, you are free. But you are free to choose any of us Kauravas to be your husband. Why will you be with these Pandavas? And it is at this time where Draupadi feels so humiliated. And this Karna says, they are all our slaves. They are all our slaves. Take the upper cloth of the Pandavas. Take that away and take the cloth of Draupadi. And this Dushasan starts to tug at the sari of Draupadi. And nobody is stopping him. Nobody is speaking up. And Draupadi just surrenders to Lord Krishna. She says, Hari, my Krishna, you are the only one who can save me. Nobody is speaking up. Bhishma was quiet. Drona was quiet. Vidura was quiet. Dhritarashtra was quiet. She was just shocked that how can everybody be quiet? And she prayed and prayed and prayed to Sri Krishna. And that sari of Draupadi was the sari of surrender. When she surrendered everything to Lord Krishna, her sari became longer and longer and longer, that the more Dushasan started to pull, the more the sari grew. And at some point in time, Dushasan got so tired. And everyone was just in awe of Draupadi. They were in awe of her surrender to Lord Krishna. How beautiful was her surrender, and how Lord Krishna had come to save her when nobody was there. And it is at this point where Bhima is filled with wrath. And he says, I'm not mad about anything being lost, but about Draupadi, this is too much. I want to burn the hands of Yudhishthira. Bhima is just so angry. And Arjuna says, please, please, calm yourself down. Just calm yourself down. He says, how can I calm down? And they said, just calm yourself down. And they are all looking at the Pandavas and all looking at Draupadi. And this Bhima says, listen, all of you here today, I am going to take a vow. I am going to tear open the chest of this Dushasan and I'm going to drink his blood. He says this. And he says this Duryodhana had showed Draupadi his thigh. I am going to destroy Duryodhana's thigh. My brother Arjuna, he will defeat this Karna. My brother Nakula will defeat this Shakuni. We vow, and Bhima vows, I will destroy every single one of the brothers of this Kuru clan. Every single one of them. And he took that vow. And Arjuna followed with his vow. Nakula also stated his vow. And there were flowers and showers in heavens when they took their vows. And everybody was shaken up. Because now, nobody would escape the wrath of the Pandavas. Nobody could escape them. Now Dhritarashtra knew this. And he said, this is too much. This is too much now because they are going to destroy us. He calls Draupadi and he says, we have insulted you. We have really done you wrong. You please ask me for one boon. She says to him, I ask for Yudhishthira. Let him be free. He says, okay, granted. He says, you ask me for another boon. She says, I ask for Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva, and all of their weapons. Let them be free. He says, okay, ask me for a third one. She says, I don't need to ask you for a third one. 2 are enough. And therefore, the Pandavas and Draupadi were once again free. Now Dhritarashtra told them, I will give you back all your riches, all your wealth, everything I will give you back. And he gave it back to them. But he said, please forget what happened today. Please do not curse these Kauravas. Do not curse these Kauravas. Forget every single thing that happened today. And please, please forgive us. And he sent the Pandavas away. So the Pandavas left with Draupadi. Now, we will pause for a moment just to see the beauty of Draupadi. The first, most beautiful thing about Draupadi is that she spoke up. She's not she's not that kind of character who was silent or who just followed whatever was told to her. She questioned. She said, answer this question. Am I a slave if Yudhishthira lost me after he lost himself? And she questioned everybody in the Sabha. When everyone was silent, she spoke up for what her rights are. And it is said, so many times that bad things come not because people, so many people do so many things. It's so often because people stay silent. A Kshatriya's dharma is to speak up and to fight for what's right. Draupadi also, if you see her surrender to Lord Krishna, that is the most beautiful thing about Draupadi. It is said in one of the stories that in this Rajasuya Yajna, when Lord Krishna released his chakra to Shishupala, his finger was bleeding. And so Draupadi tears a cloth from her sari and ties it around Krishna. And Lord Krishna says, and this was the first Raksha Bandhan, apparently. Lord Krishna says, I will always be there and I will always protect you. Now, that guts of Draupadi to just freely surrender everything to Lord Krishna, that is something wonderful that we can learn. That when nobody's there for you, Bhagavan will always, always be there for you. And look at that Draupadi. She was given a boon from Dhritarashtra. What does she ask for? She doesn't ask. She doesn't say, okay, let me be free. I don't want to deal with any of this. Let me go. Give me all this money. Give me all of these things and let me be free. And you take everything. You leave them here. She asks for Yudhishthira. That very person who gambled her away, she asks for him. Look at that. Look at that heart of Draupadi. Because she believes that in the heart of hearts, Yudhishthira is a Dharmaraja. He slipped, he fell, and he fell badly. But you look at the heart of Draupadi to say, Yudhishthira must come back. And Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva, Bhima must come back. Even if they didn't say anything, they didn't stand up for her, she asks for them back. They didn't stand up for her, but she stood up for them. Now, that's a very powerful woman. And Dhritarashtra wants to give her more and more boons, more and more boons. She knows her limit. She knows what is required. She has her integrity. This is Draupadi. She's not some helpless lady that got dragged into this Sabha and all of that. She is an extremely powerful woman. That is the wife of the Pandavas. If somebody did that to us, for us to still have that integrity, that is very difficult. So that is the quality of her. Now, what happened after this? So I told you, they got all their wealth back. They got Draupadi asked for them back. They got their weapons back. And they were walking. They were walking to Indraprastha. They were going to restart everything again. Then, as they were walking, Duryodhana is so upset. He tells his father, what is this? We had them. We were about to defeat them. Why did you do all of this? Why did you come in between? And Dhritarashtra said, it is too much. It was too much. Duryodhana said, no, father, we need to defeat these Pandavas. And together, all this Shakuni, Karna, Duryodhana, Dushasan. This is these four, the Chatushtaya, this very, very bad foursome. Huh? They're always plotting. They plot another game of dice. They say, let's call them back for another game of dice. They're still walking towards Indraprastha. They're still walking. Let's call them back for another game of dice. And this time, whoever loses has to go in exile for 12 years to the forest and 1 year incognito. And if they are discovered in that 1 year incognito, then they will have to do the 12 years again. And so they call him back for another game of dice. And Yudhishthira says, okay. He feels that it's his duty towards his elders. He feels he has to go back. Now, is that the right thing? Is that the wrong thing? We could argue on and on. But the point is, he went back. He went back. And the dice was rolled. And the Pandavas lost. They lost. And these Pandavas had to wear now the garments of tapas, and they had to leave Hastinapura and Indraprastha. And Kunti Devi was with them. And Vidura said, Kunti Devi, you don't go to the forest. You stay with me. I'm your brother. You stay with me. And they will go to the forest. And as they were walking, it was a very, very dramatic scene. Yudhishthira would cover his eyes. And Bhima would just, think about his arms. Arjuna would be kicking the sand. Nakula and Sahadeva would cover their faces. And Draupadi also covered her face. And Dhritarashtra and Vidura was telling all of this to Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra said, why is this happening? And Vidura said, if Yudhishthira looks back, he can burn people with his anger. Bhima is looking at his arms because he's seeing all of the Kshatriyas that he is going to bring down after the 13 years are over. Arjuna is tossing sand with his feet because those are how many arrows he's going to shoot at all of the Kurus. Nakula and Sahadeva are covering their faces because they're so handsome and they don't want anyone to look at them. Draupadi, her mere glance can destroy the Kshatriya race. And the way her hair, now Draupadi vows that she will not dye her hair until that Dushasana is defeated. The way her hair is in tresses, the way she's crying, she is thinking that after these 13 years, all of the women will be in her condition because of the destruction of all of the Kauravas. And this way, they walk in exile to the forest for 12 years and 1 year in hiding. And this is what happens in the Sabha Parva. Now, what happens in the forest and how they live, that we will see next time. Okay, right, so the closing prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.